Welcome to the podcast about Tatars in Poland. I am Maurits Berger, Professor of Islam in the West at Leiden University in the Netherlands.
And I am Górska, an assistant professor at the Digital Justice Center at the University of Wrocław in Poland. Together we'll explore the history, identity and traditions of the Tatars, the Muslim minority that has lived in Poland for around 600 years. Our quest will take us to remote parts of Poland, but also into libraries and into meetings with Tatars from all walks of life.
Our question is, who are the Tatars in Poland and how do they carve out their lives in Polish society? And is Islam here in Poland different from somewhere else? These are more than academic questions. They are also questions about the ways that Muslims are part of Europe.
This is episode 1, The Warrior. What we hear is the trumpet from the tower of the main church in Krakow, a city in southern Poland, and Krakow is where I live and work. This trumpet tune is actually played every day at the same time, and there is a story to this trumpet call. So when the Tatars were invading Poland in 1241 to plunder and loot the lands, and when they were approaching Krakow, there was a sentry high in the tower of the St. Mary's Church who saw them closing in and blew his trumpet. His call was interrupted by a Tatar arrow, which pierced his throat, but the people of Krakow were warned in time and they fought the Tatars off. So there is quite some legend to this story, but it has become the symbol of Polish resistance to foreign enemies. And so every day at every hour, this trumpet call is played again live by trumpeters from the tower in 4 directions. And it is also broadcasted on national radio.
That's quite a story. But it is about the Tatars as the enemy. And at the same time, there's a long tradition of Tatars fighting for Poland instead of against it, isn't it? So how does all of this fit together?
Yes, that's exactly right, and it might sound a bit confusing. So the Tatars have also been part of Polish history and society for over 6 centuries. They are commemorated for that by a statue of the Tatar soldier in Gdańsk, which is a city in northern Poland, at the other end of Poland, at the coast of the Baltic Sea. And that statue commemorates the Tatars not as the enemies of Poland, but as its heroes. And there, actually, in Gdańsk, there is also one of the first mosques in Poland, so I think we should start our search there.
So we're in the park. Which park are we? We're in front of
Park
the statue. Tell me,
of a
who
Polish
is this?
Tatar. So who is this? I don't know yet.
But is it someone or is it just the
It
Polish
seems
Tatar?
it's the Polish Tatar who was fighting for Polish homeland. So the monument is for Polish Tatars who defended the Republic of Poland.
So it's not the Tatar of the 14th century. No, he has a gun. So it means is it 18th century, 19th century?
Or is he everything? Because he also has a sword. He has a gun.
Yeah.
On his back. He has a mustache looking like, 19th century?
Yeah, it looks like this cap, hat, sitting on a horse very proudly. Does it have a year? Because there's a huge plaque. I cannot read Polish. That's a lot of text. And a poem.
I think it's a general statue. So it basically says that Polish Tatars fought to defend their adopted homeland already in late Middle Ages, including the Grunwald battle in 1410.
That's
the famous one, which I didn't know that they did fight together with Poland already. And then in the war, Polish it's not so easy to translate. says crusaders. They weren't crusaders.
Yes, they were. The Teutonic Crusades. These were
The
European crusaders.
Teutonic Knights, right?
Were crusades. These were crusades because they got a crusaders' ball from Rome. No, these are European crusades.
Yeah, I'm sure they have a different name.
Not in English, and not in French, and not in German.
Teutonic Knights, what I thought.
Yeah.
So as a name of
the Teutonic Knights was a crusaders' order, and they fought their crusades here. There were more crusades in Europe than there were outside of Europe. And the Lithuanians got the Tatars in to fight on their side.
Yeah.
But it's still not Poland. Poland wasn't there yet.
Well, technically we were for a long time in the personal union between Poland and Lithuania, so
that came later.
We treated, that wasn't...
That was...
my history, as you can see. I was better at this.
Yeah, we have to get this history right. Okay, this is what the history books tell us. The Tatars trace their history to the Mongols of Genghis Khan. He and his successors conquered most of Central Asia, and around 1250 some of his armies ventured out north into what is now Ukraine and Russia. And there they established principalities that were called khanats, and from there they raided the surrounding lands. And some of those plundered trips took them as far as Poland, and that is the time when they attacked Krakow. But in the northern region of Europe, another conflict was playing out. The Order of Teutonic Knights, for almost 2 centuries, was waging a crusaders' war against the Baltic lands of what are now Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. The Grand Duke of Lithuania then made an important decision. In 1397, he granted a band of Tatar warriors refuge in his duchy, and they would fight for him in exchange for residence and freedom of religion. And so they did. And they helped the Lithuanians fight off the Teutonic Knights, until these Teutonics were defeated in the Battle of Grunwald or Tannenberg at 1410. And the Tatars played a big role in this final battle, and after that remained part of the Lithuanian army. But then, 150 years later, 1569, we are still a history lesson now, Lithuania merged with Poland. They formed an enormous state that included what is today Belarus and Ukraine. And this explains that we find today Tatars in all these countries. The Tatars came to Poland much later. In 1679, so that's a century after the formation of this huge Polish-Lithuanian state, in that year the Polish king granted the Tatars lands in eastern Poland and gave them titles so that they became part of the Polish nobility. And many Tatars moved from Lithuania and Belarus to this Polish region that is called Podlasia, a name that we will hear more during this podcast. The Tatars settled in really well and made a name for themselves as loyal soldiers. They had their own regiments in the army. They fought in all the wars with the Poles, including the wars against the Ottomans and the Russians, and later in World War II. In this last war, they suffered deportation and execution from both the Nazis and the Soviets, like most other Polish officers.
So 3 Tatar regiments were fighting in the war with Russia that was lost by Poland.
So they had their own regiments.
They had their own regiments.
They were not mixed up with all the others. They had their own regiments.
They had their own regiments. They fought with Russia and then took part in the Kościuszko insurrection. And then they took part in the fights for independence after Poland lost its independence. A lot were related to Polish emigrants abroad who emigrated after the insurrection was lost. So they were active in the independence movements as emissaries, couriers, fighting Russia in Caucasus and in Italy and in France.
I think this really makes a difference when it comes to the acceptance of, in this case, a Muslim minority. If they fight for a country, and they've been doing that for centuries,
it's hard to tell them that they're not part of this country.
They've fought and bled for the country.
Although in this context, and we still didn't finish the whole plaque, but in this context, that's why it hurts me a tiny bit to see adopted homeland in the first sentence. Because I think with all of that, it's hard to tell them that it's still an adopted homeland. It's just homeland.
Yeah. Apparently, what I heard, because I cannot read Polish, but in the magazines they have themselves, Tatar magazines, they themselves use that word, adopted homeland.
Well, it also makes some sense if you're still separate somehow.
But if you go back to the 14th century, and then, what is it, 800 years later, you still talk about adopted. Yeah, I find it
I'm
odd.
not sure if my family hasn't been in Poland for so long.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Part of it is that I don't know my history going that far back, but I'm...
Yeah, my family has been in the Netherlands 4 generations, perhaps 5.
And you wouldn't say it's your adopted homeland, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
So there is
you have
something.
A point. Yes, you have a point.
Yeah. We talk a lot about history, but we wanted to meet the Tatars in person. So I spent a lot of time on the phone and mostly email, and it turned out that actually people were quite willing to talk to us. So in Gdańsk, we mostly wanted to visit one of the few Tatar mosques in Poland. I contacted Olgierd. He is the custodian of the mosque, a young man who is the son of the Tatar family that actually has established the mosque in the 1980s. He was very welcoming and told us to come on the first Friday of Ramadan. Well, it's the only mosque in Poland. I think there are 5 mosques in Poland. It's the only one with the minaret, because apart from that, I think in Warsaw there was a large conflict about it, and
the only mosque with a minaret, really?
Well, that's what it's written about it. I would have to see what exactly is built elsewhere. So let's not jump fences here, because I would have to see the architecture of the Warsaw, the newest one. But at least for a long time, what was written about here was that that's the only mosque with the minaret.
Yeah. Let's go. We get run over.
Yeah.
We are in the outskirts of Gdańsk, at the far end of a not-so-fancy residential area. We're looking at the mosque. Right in front of us, there's white, with a dome and a typical Turkish pencil-shaped minaret. It's extremely busy because it's a Friday during Ramadan, the month of fasting. Eva had contacted a custodian, and he had told us to just come over. And in the hustle and bustle of young men entering the mosque, he sees us, and he waves us into the mosque to attend the Friday prayer. That was not really what we expected, but we look at each other and we shrug and we go in. I'm sitting in the back of the prayer hall of the mosque in Gdańsk. It's packed with people, more come in. And I'm here downstairs with all the men. Eva is upstairs on the balcony in the women's section. I'm not sure what's going to happen when this is over. We were supposed to talk to the custodian, because he is Tatar. But perhaps we could talk to the imam as
So after the service, Maurits walked straight up to the imam, who is not Tatar, but Turkish. And he was most willing to talk to us. He took us to a small kitchen downstairs under the prayer hall, where we are now sitting at the table.
أيوة من هناك.
أنا كمان كنت هناك 4 سنين.
ما شاء
بعدين
الله.
4 سنين بسوريا.
Maurits and the imam are chatting away in Arabic because Maurits does not speak Polish, the Turkish imam does not know English, but the imam has studied at the famous Azhar University in Cairo. His Arabic is rusty and he's struggling with the heavy Syrian accent in Maurits Arabic, but they are able to talk.
إحنا داخل هو دعونا هنا من تركيا من طرف الديانة طبعا.
This imam has been sent to Poland by the Turkish Ministry of Religious Affairs, Diyanet. This ministry sends out imams all over the world to places that want them, and they stay there for periods of 5 years. It is a bit like the diplomatic service. In this case, it was the Mufti of Poland, that is, the leader of the Muslims in Poland, who had asked Turkey for imams.
أنا 2.5 سنين في غدانسك 2 سنين. دوا لاتا إيبوف. كراكوف كمان 2
لا يعني 4
يعني 4 سنوات.
وتعلمت لو بولندي وين؟
بولندي أول في أوائل.
So our imam here spent first 2 years in Krakow and is now in his 3rd year in Gdańsk. His sermons are part Arabic, part Turkish, and part Polish. The Arabic is because that is the language of the Quran. The Turkish because many of the young men in the mosque are from Central Asia and they understand Turkish. And then Polish because we are in Poland. But to be honest, it was a bit difficult for me to follow the Polish part. But at the end, it was very clear that he was making an effort.
بعدين بولندي وبعدين رسمي لأن في آذريين تركمانيين أوزبكيين.
The worshippers we saw today are almost all foreigners, mostly guest workers from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Central Asia. There are also some Polish converts, so Maurits just asked where the Tatars are, because this is a Tatar mosque. And then the imam chuckled and said that a small group of Tatar Muslims have their own service in the mosque on Sundays. According to the imam, that is because they do not like the crowds.
هم لا يحبون الازدحام. هم كمان داخل أعضاء في الجمعية. جمعية.
We talk for almost an hour and then say our goodbyes. The mosque is empty now, and Maurits and I sit on the stairs that lead to the balcony where I just sat with the women during the sermon.
So this was a pleasant surprise, unexpected. Yeah,
So that's just...
Because I thought we were just going to talk to people, and now we had a complete Friday prayer ceremony.
In 3 languages.
In 3 languages. You were sitting upstairs, right?
I was upstairs with the girls. So there was, in the end, there were 9. They just came late.
But were you separate from, because there were guys upstairs too?
Yeah, so there's a barrier here. So
because we're sitting upstairs now, right?
Yeah, we are upstairs now. So there's a large balcony, and then on the left side there's a barrier from a fabric separated. So there were in the end there were 9 girls, and when they went into 2 rows to pray, I had to move back to make space for them. So that was basically enough space for
Because I was sitting downstairs. I counted about 150. I think about 300 people must have been. They were all younger. I was sitting in the back. And I was sitting with the elderly man who could not bend, so that I wasn't too conspicuous. So actually, it was interesting because next to me was a young guy, I guess a Polish guy, who kind of wavery, not really didn't. And then he was invited in to stand in the row when he said no, and then at the end he started to join prayer.
Maybe so that's one converting downstairs.
Yes, there's a conversion taking place downstairs.
Okay, well, with the girls. You could, like, I looked at the hijab, at how they are dressed completely differently. So you could see, like, 2 are more or less from the same place and wearing the same kind of hijab or dressing.
But were they Polish or foreign, do you think?
I think one was Polish and I think one was speaking Polish. I heard that later, and but I would say she was from Arab descent or something like that. 2 were somewhere from Africa. Maybe 2 were, could be Turkey, Malaysia, Uzbekistan.
Because downstairs also all those guys, I mean, there were a few Polish people. I cannot see who is a Tatar and not, but I could see there was a lot of Asian people, some African people. It was from all over the place. have one more question.
Yeah.
When we came in, did he ask you to put on the headscarf? Looks good
No.
on you.
Thank you. He didn't ask me to put the headscarf on.
But you did. So
I did because for me, it's pretty obvious. I wonder what they would do if I wouldn't.
yes, that's what I. Because he appreciated it.
He appreciated
when you
it.
did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think he said that we can go inside the prayer to see the prayer because, and he mentioned you have your hijab on.
That's why you could come in.
I think that's why I could go up, and we didn't sit in the kitchen throughout the prayer.
Yes. Does it make a difference for you? Do you feel more or less comfortable?
It doesn't.
Doesn't matter.
Like, it's fine, like, I wouldn't wear short shorts to a church, and I would wear a hijab to a mosque. And apart from that, like if I we're having a hijab conversation on the first day.
I'm also asking you because we had a riot in the Netherlands. We had the royal family visiting Oman or something, and it was a visit to one of the grand mosques, wearing headscarves. There was a riot in Parliament. How could they? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, either I.
And
read
some
about
women
that
are very sensitive about this. I don't want to wear a hijab for any reason, respect or whatever, because I find it whatever. Oppressive,
I know.
You know that conversation.
I know that conversation. I had it with many international students in Palestine, actually, who are very technically open-minded when it comes to different cultures, religions, respect the colonization of thinking and everything else. And then we somehow end up with that conversation often. And for me, I don't care really. It's a matter of respect.
But what did you tell them? So if there were students who had said, I don't want it, did you tell them they should?
I tell them we are guests here and it's a matter of respect to the host to wear it. And then we can go out and discuss it. No one tells you you have to wear it on the street every day, so you have your freedom of choice. But also, if there's a woman who chooses to wear it on the street, it should be her choice, her body, how she dresses.
Yeah. So that's the same logic you use when you're entering a church.
Yeah.
Out of respect.
Out of respect, and sometimes there are churches, or there used to be, in, for example, smaller towns. When I went there as a child, so for example, in Poland, there was a tradition of wearing a headscarf in church for women. And if I would be the only girl, for example, as a child, or my mother explained that, like we are an outsider, so we don't wear it, but they wear it because that's their tradition. If they would want us to cover, we would cover. I think.
Yeah. No, but the interesting thing is here, they did not want you to cover. They did not ask you. So
it is interesting.
You made the decision yourself. They appreciated it, but you could also have not done it, and they would have still allowed you in, not in the prayer place, but still. Yeah.
Well, there was also a girl upstairs praying, wearing just her hoodie.
Wow.
Yeah, which is not something I've seen really before. No. I think what I like here, actually, being here, is the plurality and the respect for the plurality. You have people from different ends of the world. You have girls from different places wearing different kinds of hijab. Men also from different cultures. Yeah. And everyone here respects the cultural differences. There's a choice. So whenever you come from, whatever is your culture, whatever is your background, whatever you normally do and feel should be done. And I don't think anyone will mind.
That's why you can see that this mosque really serves a much wider community, not a single community. Because all these because it was also young people. It's mostly young men.
Yeah.
And there was this sense, I've seen it in other mosques as well, but here was very much it's a warmth, a brotherhood kind of feeling. And because it was too crowded, but everyone kind of shoves in. Yeah, come on, brothers, stay with me. Yeah.
Same upstairs.
Really nice. Yeah.
And also, people are speaking different languages, so it's a lot of smiling and nodding.
And you know what I personally like, coming from a Catholic background? It was done and over in half an hour.
Yes.
One more question. The young man who's in charge, who welcomed us, was quite businesslike, very friendly, welcoming. What exactly is his relation to the mosque? Something with his father?
So he's Olgierd Hasbievich. I hope we can meet him again and he will tell a bit more about himself. He's, I would call it, custodian of the mosque.
Yeah.
He's from the Tatar community, as far as we know now from the imam. His father is Tatar, his mother is Polish Catholic. So his father, Selim Hasbievich, is pretty famous. So now he's an ambassador.
In Kazakhstan
He said Kazakhstan, yeah. But he also is a writer, and he used to be a professor at the Warsaw University. He did write about Tatar matters, as far as I know. And I had a feeling when I was reading about him, I think he was also a poet. When I was reading about him, I had this, he's still a poet, I had this feeling that he's very respected.
Okay.
As an intellectual and Tatar and professor and now a diplomat.
Wow.
So it's a lot. So a diplomat for Poland, so that's also how Polish do you have to be? I feel a bit embarrassed that we had no time to talk to Olgierd. He was so kind to invite us over and to let us attend the Friday prayer. So I promised myself to arrange a meeting with him once we get back to Gdańsk.
We moved from Krakow in the south of Poland to Gdańsk in the north. And we got a lot of impressions and information, but we have still not met any Polish Tatars. For this, everyone tells us, we need to go all the way east, near the border of Belarus, about 6 hours driving from here. So, that's where we're going. This search is turning into a road trip. Next stop is the tiny village of Kruszyniany.
Kruszyniany. This podcast was hosted by Maurits Berger and Ewa Górska. Sound editing by Tomasz Stankiewicz, tostanki.pl. Voiceover Natalia Orkisz-Plebanek and Zbigniew Lecznar. Music in this podcast series is by Ensemble Peregrinus, which recreated traditional Tatar music, and by the Arab artists Sabri Mosbah, Tamer Nafer, Ghalia and Youssef Kehia.